Hello, Pack People. My name is Alvin.
And my name is Sverre. In this presentation, we will be discussing the sensations relating to the abnormal perception of body parts that aren't really there, namely the fading limb phenomenon and the supernumerary limb phenomenon. These phenomena relates to our body schema, which was introduced by Head and Holmes in 1911. Your body schema is your unconscious representation of your body and how it relates our body to the outside world, and it is always updating itself through our perceptual cues.
The fading limb phenomenon is characterized as a lack of sensation of the limbs after a neglectance of visual input. The most distinct features of this phenomenon is of a temporary fading sensation that resets after each time visual input is received. The most famous example is patient PJ, who had a lesion in her superior parietal lobe. She reported a peculiar sensation of her right arm and legs seemingly drifting away from her body, unless she fixed her gaze on it. At one particular event, she didn't even realize her right leg was blocking someone on the bus. Wolpert et al. Have conducted studies on her to see what she can do and what she can't. In one experiment, she was to participate in a classic reaching task to see if symptoms of misreaching appear. Interestingly, results show that she was able to reach her targets using both arms fairly good in normal time, but when she was told to do so slowly, she struggled. She was only able to move slowly to a general direction, and then her right arm started wandering in random directions until she felt the target. In a second experiment, weights were placed by the researchers on the back of PJ's right hand without PJ looking. She reported that she can feel the weight pressing onto her back hand, but a few seconds later, the sensation faded. She could also tell when the weight was lifted up and when the weight was repositioned in a different area of her back hand, though yet again, when the weight sat still for more than approximately 2.9 seconds, the sensation faded. Finally, PJ was told to maintain a precise grip on a device for a few seconds. In her right hand, under visual feedback, she could maintain the precision grip as well as the grip force for as long as she wanted, but without visual feedback, the strength of her hold gradually reduced to zero after a period of 10 to 15 seconds. From these experiments, Wolpert et al. Suggested that the superior parietal lobe is responsible for sensory motor integration by maintaining an internal representation of the states of the body. Without this area, the brain can process sensory motor simulations briefly, but is unable to maintain it, hence the fading limb. So we've seen what happens when the brain fails to recognize one of its own limbs, a reduction from 2 to 1. In the next study, we'll see what happens when the brain recognizes an extra limb from an addition of 2 to 3.
Supernumerary limb or ghost limb is when you start to sense an additional limb that's not really there. Harry et al. And Mechanical et al. Studied patient EP who had this phenomenon. Patient EP had to go into surgery for a ruptured aneurysm in an artery close to the corpus callosum. This led to damage to the posterior frontal lobe and a few areas close to the corpus callosum. It was after the surgery that she started to develop the condition of supernumerary limb. Patient EP sensed a third arm and a few times a third leg. This third arm is always on the left side of her body. It could be doing different things such as carrying a shopping bag, which is what she drew in the picture illustrating how it feels for her. However, it is usually passive. For example, she could be watching TV, then suddenly she has one arm on her armrest and one in her lap. Usually the third arm appears in the same position as the real arm has previously been. There's a couple ways patient EP is able to snap out of sensing a ghost arm. These are by feedback from the real arm. Either she looks at her real arm or she senses touch with her real arm. Both of these make the ghost arm vanish. The reason for the ghost limb suggested in the Harry et al. Paper and the Mechanical et al. Paper is that this third arm might be appearing because her body schema is not updating properly. This could be why it is usually appearing in the places that the real arm has previously been. as her brain is filling in the gaps in her body schema due to the lack of information from her perception. When the body schema is updated through some sort of feedback such as touch or vision, the ghost arm vanishes. We have several forms of perception, such as vision, touch, and proprioception. All of these senses gather in the brain and are constantly updated. The brain combines these to create a coherent body schema, so it can act in the world. With damage to some of the areas in the brain responsible for these senses, our brain isn't able to update our body schema in real time. To compensate for this, our brain tries to make sense of lagging information and creates these distortions such as fading limb and supernumerary limb.
Thank you for watching.